Hey, I'm Guy, and that's John.
Yes, it is. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave a comment. Also, check the podcast below in the description.
And check out geology.com/ham for 40% off all trial sets and 20% off the new SPF 30 sunscreen.
Keep yourself looking good. Geology.com/ham.
I think, and I said this early in the season, and we're coming off having watched their win over the Grizzlies on Sunday. I said this early in the year. I thought he was back to MVP form. And as it turned out, I think I was right. He didn't win it. He's not going to win it. But one thing I think is really clear, and it's not going to be clear to people who didn't watch Steph's career, there's going to be a gap for him from this year when he won the scoring title, right? He clinched it today.
Yeah.
32 points a game, basically. And the 2015-16 season when he won the scoring title. There's a gap all those years in between that he didn't win the scoring title. And the guy sacrificed to win with KD. Great, all for it. But it does not – he just is able to flip the switch of interesting in the NBA immediately, and he did it this year.
Yeah, I mean, the most powerful part about him is he's one of the last needle movers in a league that's had a precipitous drop-off in interest. Like, I mean, listen to Strauss write and talk about it on his podcast with the guys on the Plus Minus. The importance of the Warriors this year, like obviously the Lakers, they're the defending champs, and they're the Lakers, the number one draw. The Warriors are like a close second, and depending on the nights you look, they're bigger sometimes when you put them on national television. And you're watching him today, he's probably the most unique, like just because he's so small and yet he's such an efficient scorer. Like clearly the best three players of his era. LeBron is number one. And these guys played together, and I think most people, even the diehard basketball people, would give the edge Kevin is better than Steph. But I'm watching him today, like, you can make that argument, but I can also make the argument that Steph's the second best player of his era. Kevin needed him. He did not need Kevin to win a championship, right? I mean, you could make the argument, and I'm not diminishing Kevin. I mean, you're talking LeBron's be a top 3 or 4 player ever, probably second. Kevin, who knows where it all shakes, potentially a top 10. Like, what's Curry? Because here's what I know. Curry played in an era of great guards, right? Chris Paul was called the point god. Steph Curry's in a different universe than Chris Paul. Russell Westbrook. They don't even share anything in common beside stats.
Can I say one thing about? I agree with you. This is not a disagreement with anything you just said. I do think one thing is clear, even though he's annoying. Chris Paul wins like almost everywhere he goes, right?
But I'm not acting like he's not an elite all-time great.
No, I know. This is just a separate. I just wanted to make an aside. Like I don't know if Chris Paul even gets appreciated because he just goes to places where you're like, why would you want to go there? Like he doesn't even want to go there. He was forced to go, and they just win. Anyway, keep going on Steph though.
But Golden State was that, and what he did here with Draymond and even Clay before Kevin ever showed up was something that Chris could not do. Like let's not even include anyone else. Just the two best point guards of the last decade and a half were Chris and Steph, and every single person in the NBA would agree with me that Steph's a better player. They would rather have Steph than Chris. And I think Chris, like you said, in like true basketball sense, and people in the mud of hoops think he's like underappreciated, but everyone agrees that Steph's better. Like Chris is going to go down as like an all-time great.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's not even an argument.
Yeah, but I think part of it today is just watching these guys in a big game. I was thinking about this historically because I think Draymond is one of the great big game players I've ever seen. The thing with the NBA, watching a little bit of the Hall of Fame, and it was pretty powerful moment. Vanessa talking, Michael behind him. Michael also introduced Kim Mulkey because they met like in 1984 at the Olympics, and they just became friends. And it was like, yeah, I could see them being friends. I was like, yeah, makes sense.
I've heard. I didn't realize it till I'd heard a few people say like, yeah, Kim Mulkey like. She rubbed some people the wrong way, like kind of the way Michael does.
Michael fucking loves her, and they're homies. And I guess someone couldn't show up for Kim, so she asked Mike. He's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." But it just what I was saying is the history of the NBA. Most guys don't win because the same group of the elite top end guys win all the championships, right? That's what's like these guys. Just watching those two guys with a bunch of randos. I mean, just random guys. The majority of people listen to this podcast, unless you're a Warriors fan, wouldn't even know who they are. And when they flip a switch, it's like, goddamn, this is the NBA that I grew up on. Like when a Shaq, when a Michael, when an Akeem, when a Kobe would flip a switch, like, we ain't fucking losing this game. Under no chance. And that's something the NBA, I think, has lost. It's why so many people just, you watch these games, you're like, God, does anyone care? And you could feel it today. It's like, God, these two guys. And really, you look at the stats like the last, month, they had to flip a switch because they were trending the wrong way. It's like, God, are they going to miss like a play-in game?
Yeah.
And they flipped a switch, and those two, and it's really, it kind of felt like an NBA jam because Draymond, everyone's going to be blowing Steph, and they should. He scored 46 points. Guy, Draymond's fucking throwing passes like he's Chris Paul. It's amazing to watch those two guys, like, under no circumstances are we beating, are we losing to these two random guys. Now, if it plays out, we're recording this before the Laker game, they play the Lakers and lose. Like, I'm not saying they're just going to win that game, but, like, I think there's going to be overwhelming if LeBron and Anthony Davis are healthy for the game. Everyone will pick the Lakers. I would just say not so fast. Now, I would put LeBron in that category as well. Like, I'm not in the business of betting against him by any means. But, like, if I had to do the rankings of guys, push comes to shove, my money's on the line. I know this, Anthony Davis is the fourth guy on the list of people I trust when it's fucking nut cutting time. I'll promise you that much. So it's like, if his ankle tweaks, like, I know Draymond's playing through it, I can see Anthony Davis like, oh,
Yeah,
injured.
I do think yeah, I agree. I mean, we're talking about
I did have an
champions,
NBA
John.
coach. I did have an NBA coach, an assistant within the last week, send me a clip of Anthony Davis, and he's like, bro, what were we supposed to do against this? It was him going, like, rebound, around the back, coast to coast, layup between three guys. He's like, this skill is just, I'm not disputing his, like, talent, but my point is,
Look,
do you agree that everyone is not going to pick them if that's the game? And it's like, I wouldn't bet against Steph and Draymond.
Well, partly there's, you're talking, there's also you just said I wouldn't bet against them. You're not even talking about the odds. You're just saying you don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for the Lakers. I agree. I mean, but think about what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about, of the four guys you named, three of them are champions, like in capital letters all the way across, right? LeBron and Draymond and Steph have had epic moments in the history of the NBA, both individually and against one another. It's not even fair. I mean, Anthony Davis is not in that conversation. No, he's a great player, right? But what you're talking about is, like, you're talking about some of the greatest players who've ever lived and have won being great. Draymond, watching Steph and Draymond the other day had like this NBA Jam moment. Draymond throws some passes. Him and Steph have these redirects where Draymond's throwing these rockets to places where people don't usually throw passes, right? Where Steph gives it to him, and you're used to seeing a guy maybe he'll come off a screen. Draymond throws passes from places and to places on the floor that are really, guys usually don't throw them from that spot to that spot at these crazy angles from traffic. It's really mind-blowing.
I saw Gottlieb get in an argument with people on Twitter earlier this week about, like, Westbrook's place in history. And he quoted, someone tweeted at him something about Steph being an all-time great point guard. And he pushed back. He's like, I don't think you can just consider him a point guard. Because you watch him today, like, he does play a little like Reggie Miller style.
Yeah.
Like, they just had, like, he's not a true, Draymond turns into their point guard when they're playing like that, right? It really,
yeah. I mean,
Draymond's
had 11 assists, 10 assists, 13 assists. What do you have today? What was the box?
I think he ended up with 9. He ended up like 12, 9, and 8. He didn't end up with a triple-double. But I felt like today they basically just go, fucking Draymond, you run it. Steph, you run around, and you guys are fucked because you're going to end up with Steph. You either leave him open, he hits a 3, or one of our guys just lays under the basket and gets an easy layup. And Draymond makes these passes like he's freaking John Elway's. Like, whoo, 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 whoo. It's... Guy, I don't think Draymond gets – I think Steph ultimately does get the respect. I mean, everyone loves him. You watch Draymond when it matters. He turns into this player that just – we grew up on the Kings, Vlade, Weber. They were fantastic passing big men. But they were stationary, right? You would throw it into Vlade, and he would run the offense from, like, the post. And guys would cut. That was the offense, right? The Princeton offense. Everyone's cutting. Your bigs had to be able to pass. Chris Webber, same thing. Great passer. You watch the dude from Denver. He stays stationary, and Shaq was a really good passer. And you just got guys cutting. If your big man can pass, it makes it crazy. Draymond can do that. He also can just sit at the top of the three-point line, dribble, and run the point. That is not normal at all, guy.
No.
Now, granted, he is closer to most point guard size, right? He's probably with shoes on 6'6",
Yeah, I
But
mean,
he is their
he's
center.
Magic size. But
I think Magic's 6'9". Magic's got him by a couple inches.
well, yeah. Well, I just mean he to me he's built more like Magic than he is built or Magic was built more like him than a center even too. But I do no, I think you're right. He's more underappreciated than Steph. I think the Steph underappreciation is maybe that's more an internet thing. But I do think Steph sacrificed something in terms of the overall numbers. I think he could have led the NBA in scoring for 6 straight years at over 30 points a game if he had wanted to. And I think that's part of his story is that's not what his number one priority was. But I think also the last thing I think we should address on this, it's not just about those two guys. This is about the health of the NBA too and how good for the league Steph is. And I think there's two guys on the top tier of great for the league, and it's Steph and LeBron. KD's great for the league. There are a lot of guys that are great for the league, but in terms of the top tier, give me this guy versus this guy, and that's the best television product you can put forth. I think Steph versus LeBron is – now, I'm not saying these could be the most competitive games. I'm just saying Steph versus LeBron, if you could draw it up in the NBA office, that's the best thing you could possibly have. There's no combination of two best players against one another that's better than Steph versus LeBron. LeBron versus KD is not better, I don't think, for TV ratings than Steph versus LeBron. So give him a 12 game. I mean, give him 7. You got to hope for 7 somehow. You're not getting that, but you got to hope for the play-in game.
Yeah, to me, Wednesday night's got 10 million people watching if it's those two. Because I do think it'll get built up. Well, Strauss thought that there's a chance that game does the highest rating of any game all playoffs, assuming obviously they'd
bigger
never
than
meet up.
Game 7 of an NBA Finals.
He thought there was a chance that it is bigger in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Because I ended up going on a rabbit hole the other day because I saw Bryson hit this ball. I sent you that visual of him hitting it 385, and he carried it 365. So I took the Barry Bonds home run from Game 7, or maybe it was Game 6, when he hits the ball and Tim Salmon goes, "It's the farthest ball I've ever seen hit." Then what I did is I Googled the ratings. What did that game rate? And Game 7 of Angels Giants did 30 million people. Over the last 20 years, beside the Cubs game, which it did like 45 million people, Cubs Indians, like you're just going through, you're like, God, drop off, whoa, and you're like, God, the baseball won. That was fucking good for business and Fox
before the Cubs had won a World Series.
When the Yankees were involved in 2009 and the Cubs were the highest 2 World Series the last like 20 years, but the Warriors, like Strauss does a lot of deep dives on the rating stuff, like they're the biggest true draw. Now, I think the Lakers have more fans than the Warriors. Like, true guy, if you meet a guy, like if you moved to Florida, I moved to Minnesota, we would just run into Laker fans. Like, legit. Like, I'm 50 years old. I've been a Laker fan since I could think, right? They exist way more than the Warriors. The Warriors do have, like today, I bet when that number comes out, it was higher than most NBA games. Steph going off today against the Grizzlies. He has like, damn, Steph's doing something. Even a guy that is quote unquote down on basketball, and there are a lot of those right now, just like I'm out on the NBA right now. Sunday today, you tuned in to watch him just fucking hit fadeaway threes in people I've never heard of's faces.
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks, at first I'm like, oh, Dylan Brooks can D him up. And then like as the game's going on, you're like, is Steph going to get 50?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks is good.